right? So here are the villi. So villi are these little finger-like structures that are in your intestines, mostly in the small intestine. And what they are doing is grabbing nutrients and bringing them into the bloodstream or the lymph system. If it's fatty acids, it has to go through the lymph system. If it's amino acids and carbohydrates, then they can go through the bloodstream. So these things are absorbing minerals and nutrients for you. And this on the right side is what happens. You can see it looks like carbon it's flattened out. Here's what happens when people who have celiac disease. These things get attacked by the immune system. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, meaning that your system begins to attack you because it's confused. So it's an autoimmune disease, and it's very problematic for digestion. So I'm going to go through this in detail. And one thing I forgot to mention, if you understand about 10% of what comes out of my pie hole today, I'll be happy. Okay, because I'm throwing a lot of science at you, and I know that most of you don't have the background to understand it. But it's not going to change a prescription at the end of the day. I'm just trying to give you ammo such that you can defend your nutritional choices and that you know how to make better choices. And I'm also using this stuff, like I said, to support my position. Because I don't want people to be like, oh yeah, okay, man used to eat like this, so you should eat like that. Yeah. What's the problem with that? I really piss off on people on the paleoblogosphere when I see this, and I get hate mail from them. Because it's just an observation. It's just
okay, you're bad, right?
Yeah.
It's okay, guys, out of the store, we can talk about it.
It is just a correlation. Cavemen and modern hunter-gatherers eat this way. Cavemen and modern hunter-gatherers had none of the disease of civilization. Not cause and effect. It's just a correlation. Turns out, it works. But, you know, there's some specifics there. There's ways to tweak it. It works fairly well, but you know, there could have been a variety of other factors that could have explained that. So you need to run in there and run the control. And when it comes to us, what's the control? Adopt the diet for 30 days, see if it works. You know, it's not going to kill you, right? I mean, I was in college, you know, pizza, and I was a graduate student, you know, pizza every day for lunch. I'm still here to talk about it. I'm still alive. I was a vegan for 2 years. I was a vegetarian for 8. I'm still alive. I probably did a lot of damage to my testosterone, but I'm still alive. All right. So when these undigested gluten fragments, they're these little rice-looking things, they get to the enterocytes. So these big cells here, they're lining the gut wall. They're called enterocytes. That's another nice word that you should know if you're playing Scrabble. So these things bind to a receptor called CR3. You don't need to know that. And as soon as it does, it activates it. And it causes the release of a molecule called zonulin. And zonulin comes along, it's this little guy here, and you can see that these cells, they have these tight junctions here that just holds them together. Zonulin comes along, binds to a receptor that dissolves those tight junctions. And the gut cells open up. And then anything can get through, which is not good, right? What you want is transport through the cell. You want the cell to absorb the nutrient and then send it to the bloodstream. You don't want, I mean, there's some selection going on there. It's like the bouncer at the door of the bar, right? You're a hot chick, you'll be good for business, you can get in. You're an ugly drunk, get the fuck out of here. That's essentially what these cells are doing. So now this stuff gets through, and these gluten fragments, they cross the intestinal lining in abundance, they accumulate under the epithelial cells, and then the gluten induces enterocytes, these cells, to secrete interleukin 15, which arouses, immune cells called intraepithelial lymphocytes against enterocytes. So it's kind of like, hey man, there's a problem, what the heck's going on? These things, there's an immune response that happens. Interleukin 15 is an icosanoid, and it's an inflammatory icosanoid, so that gets released. But the big problem is that as these things get damaged, there's something called transglutaminase, which is an enzyme that's in almost all cells. That leaks into the gut as well. It mixes with the gluten, and then this stuff eventually is causing so many problems that the immune system recognizes it. The immune system works in many ways, but there's a part of the immune system that says, all right, you're coming with me. It's kind of like a wanted poster. And it takes it to the head honcho and says, yeah, you see this? This is a huge problem. I want you to go after this. You're going to go after this right now. And that's the problem, in that things got confused. a part of your body, transglutaminase, just got mixed up with the gluten because it went through the gut, and now you have an immune response to it. And it turns out that the people with diabetes, celiac disease, get celiac disease because they have genes that express a protein that is specifically recognized as this, is specifically problematic. So they are genetically predisposed. What is really interesting, however, is that whether or not you have celiac disease, this whole scenario up until here will happen. That's very common. So gluten will increase gut permeability. No doubt about it. That happens. Okay. And then, of course, now once this immune response is set, then there's a variety of helper T cells and killer T cells that are going out and start destroying the villi and the enterocytes. And that's really bad news for the people with celiac disease, because if your gut is damaged, then your nutrient absorption is not ideal, which means that your recovery is not ideal. Also means that your innate and specific immune system are activated for no reason. And what is that? That's inflammation. Now, excess activation of the innate immune system, in case you were ever wondering, that's inflammation. That's right. So oftentimes there's an immune response that is caused, in this case specifically to transglutaminase. In other cases, it's due to other things that get through as well alongside some of the gluten. Some of those other things can be the very bacteria that are in your gut. And your gut houses gram-negative bacteria that have in their cell membrane something called LPS, lipopolysaccharide. They're built in their cell membranes with lipopolysaccharide. And that stuff really pisses off the immune system. Once that stuff gets through the gut and in the bloodstream, it causes some serious problems. So again, it overly activates the immune system, and it also can cause a disease called fatty liver disease, which is due to endotoxin translocation to the liver. What do we mean by endotoxin translocation? Lipopolysaccharides and endotoxins, toxic translocation going from the gut to the liver where it doesn't belong. So here is our gliadin induces increases intestinal permeability and zonular release by binding to chemokine receptors in CXCR3. This happens whether or not you have celiac disease. It's a very interesting paper that appeared in Etiology by Fasano and co, who are interested in that literature. This is just a breakdown that we've already covered already. Gliadin binds, increases the heat, resolves the tight gut junction, and then everything, the gut becomes leaky. So, what do you think is a question that I asked myself when I started finding this evidence? Okay, so I went from, phytic acid to undigested proteins to leaky gut. What is a leaky gut, and what are the problems associated with the leaky gut, right? Those